Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Music of the Week in the daylight, no less. As always, 6 albums to go through, so let's go through the albums. We begin with a band called Cardiacs and their new and final album, LSD. The reason why is because the band's frontman Tim Smith passed away a few years ago, and the album was actually supposed to come out back in 2008, but a lot of horrible things happened, mostly to Tim. He suffered a really bad stroke, which gave him dystonia. And his brother Jim, who was also in the band, decided to finish the work a few years later. And yeah, I'm giving this one an A, mostly because I love the story behind it, because I just went through a bit of it. But Tim was usually like the main composer. He was the band's frontman as well, and he was the main lyricist. And for the most part, songs initially didn't have lyrics on this album, and they didn't really have composition. But family and friends and bandmates used like an alphabet board and the movements of Tim's eyes to try and spell out the compositions and the wording, and I just like how that was done, really. But like, it gives this album this nice sense of honesty and warmth, weirdly, that people were by Tim's side until the end, just because he wanted to see this album get made as well, even though he didn't live long enough to see it get done, which is very sad. But that does lend credence to the lyrics. There is a really good theme of hoping for the best in a bad situation, and there's really good honesty to it. I like the instrumentation. It's fun with all these weird elements. I didn't really specify the genre. It's sort of an art rock band with weird psych elements and prog elements, and manages to make everything work together. It doesn't really hurt the pacing, even though this is the longest album in this video at 1 hour 20 minutes 11 seconds. But yeah, the overall structure is mostly really good. There's a fair few instrumental, well, I think there's one instrumental track which is one of the long songs, but you know, it's really well realised. I like the instrumentation, and the overall pacing has a pretty good flow for an album that's over 80 minutes. The performances are also great. It's not really easy for me to pick a standout because of the recording process for the album leading to so many session musicians coming in and leaving, and obviously the band not being a thing anymore because this is their last album, and I sort of respect this, their last album, because I think going on without Tim, I think even making this album was difficult enough for Jim and anyone else involved, but making this album without Tim being around anymore, I think was hard enough, so I do not blame them for not wanting to put out anything else after this. But I think this is the last album to actually feature Tim Smith, because the bulk of the album was recorded back in 2008, and I think he might have handled most of that before his stroke. So hopefully it is still him on the album, and he still sounds great for his last years. And the production is really good. It's got this really organic feel, and it doesn't clean up the mess, but it leans into the mess that the album can be in a really like endearing way. And yeah, I super enjoy this album. And yeah, I mean, I'm giving it an A in case I haven't already, but like knowing the story behind this is making me really want to go back over Cardiac's previous albums. And because this is my first time hearing about them, and when I found out this album was coming out, this was kind of a last minute ad for the past week, honestly. So yeah, getting to listen to it and actually enjoying it more than I thought I would. Yeah, I can't complain about it. It was really good stuff, and rest in peace to Tim. Next we have Dead with their third album, Resent. This is one of the two bands I think I've heard all the albums by in this video. And, you know, a good bit of new metalcore stylings. I'm giving this one an A-. I think this is better than School of Thought, but I think part of that is because School of Thought had Kevin Churko as the producer. And people know that I don't like Kevin Churko, and neither do most people in the alternative music community, because Kevin Churko cannot produce for shit. But I couldn't find who did produce this one, weirdly, and if I like wind up looking it up, you'll probably see like edited text here to say who did it. I think it might have been done by the band, I don't bloody know. But the point is, this is just a really good album. It's surprisingly hopeful for what it is. It's got a really good theme in terms of lyrics of like of self-determination and trying to be authentic and overcoming previous negative behaviours, which was a pretty major theme of that last album. I like that they continued it because it's really well handled, and performances are pretty great as well. Band have good chemistry, and Joker Taylor is, you know, he focuses more on his screams, which I think is a really good weapon that he uses quite a lot. And I don't think he used it enough on the last album, so it's nice to hear him using it more here. Instrumentation is also really good, nice heaviness, really good crunch on the guitar, and it's a bit more traditional in terms of its approach. It's like sort of not as screamy as Misanthrope, but it's got more of a nu metal feel than that album does, and I quite like it, and structure's also really good. There's a lot of fast pacing, which I don't fully agree with. I feel like there's a few, there's only 12 songs, but I feel like a couple of them could have been either longer or maybe a really short one could have been cut out, but you know, despite its fattiness, I do appreciate the flow for the most part, and again, I quite like the production because I don't know who did it, but I'm just glad it wasn't Kim Machuca this time. If it wasn't him, I haven't looked too deep into it. But it doesn't feel like it was him because it actually sounds like the album is, you know, allowed to breathe. So yeah, just a fun and really fresh feeling bit of metalcore from a band who I don't really expect usually to have a sense of fun, but they sort of brought that here, which I like. Next we have the only other band in this video who have listened to all the albums by. We have I Prevail with their fourth offering, Violent Nature, sort of a metalcore band, and sort of a unique thing happened with the lead up to this one. I'm giving it a B minus. And I feel like this is the same problem I've had with most I Prevail albums, not with True Power though, that is their best album because they fully leaned into their potential. And here's what I don't understand though, they're on the same label as they've always been on, which is Fearless, and it was produced by John Eberhard, who I'm not too familiar with in terms of his production, but, you know, I think he does a good job. But, like, there's just something lacking to this one, I can't explain it. I think I should go over the main thing that happened, which is Clean vocalist Brian Burkheiser leaving back in 2023, which was after True Power had come out. And, yeah, Eric Van Lerberg having to do both clean and scream vocals, and Eric is a good enough singer, but he's much better at screaming, and I feel like the production, it's got a good polish and does some good lifting and a good glitz on like the sound, but I feel like it processes Eric's voice a bit too much at times, and I feel like either get a different clean singer because I think their lead guitarist or one of the guitarists is taking up clean vocal duties, or just get, you know, either have him keep doing it or just get a different clean singer. Maybe. It could work. Also not big on the lyrics, there's a good theme of introspection and like looking at the self and inner nature, hence the album's sort of title, but the wording is very fucking predictably cliche, and it comes off a bit try-hard, which I think is a complaint that most I Prevail detractors have, and I feel like they lean into it the worst on this album. I don't mind the instrumentation, the guitar's got a good, crisp to it, as do the drums, but I want a bit more to happen, to be honest. And I don't mind the performances, I think Eric does as well as he can, and as much as I miss Brian, Eric does a good job. Mostly fine, but also pretty good. And yeah, the bands are also solid as well. I'm also not big on the structure, I will admit. I feel like there isn't anything new even for these guys, but it's got an admittedly pretty good closing stretch. I just feel like it feels like it's so trapped in its own comfort zone. I'm not really sure why, because they completely blasted out of that on True Power. And I don't know if it's just because Brian left, but, like, I don't know, man. I kind of expected a bit more from this one. It isn't terrible, and again, the reason I'm not giving it, like, a C or anything related to that is because it does still have the potential that I Prevail usually have, but it's trapped within something, and I couldn't figure out what, which is probably what annoys me the most about the album. Next is a band I almost completely missed the boat out on, and I'm glad they're back. It's Motion City Soundtrack with their new album, and first in a decade, The Same Old Wasted Wonderful World. I completely missed the boat on these guys, mostly because when I was getting into, like, sort of heavier and sort of weirder bits of music around that time when I was, like, late teen, early 20s, I thought these guys were a bit too nerdy for me, and then I sat down to actually listen to them, and I didn't appreciate them enough, and then they broke up. But then they reformed and dropped this one, which gets an A+. Yeah, I really fucking love this one, and I'm so glad I didn't completely miss the boat on these guys, and just glad they're back making a really good album. Instrumentation is really good, I love the vibrancy of the guitars, but also there's a nice focus on the keyboard work, and I've got to check the production. Sean O'Keefe does a really good job. I'm 80% sure I've covered his production style before, but yeah, he just lets so much of things breathe, and there's really good guitar stuff, really good bass, really good drums, all meld together nicely, and just a really good mix in terms of the attention to detail especially. Also just really good performances as well. I'm quite shocked that Justin Pierre, the frontman, is nearly 50, but he still sounds very young. Yeah, he's still got a lot of, like, passion to him, and, you know, he's good at projecting his voice and singing, honestly, and I like the unabashed, like, nerdy oddness of the album, which I think is inherent in the lyrics as well. There's the band's usual themes of alienation and anxiety and love, and it's stuff that feels familiar even in the genre, but to be honest, Motion City Soundtrack, from the songs I'd heard before this album came out, not just, like, singles, but, like, songs from when they were in their first run, yeah, I've always sort of appreciated their sort of more realistic and honest and sort of like nerdy take on things. I've always liked it. And the structure is also really good. There's a really nice bounce and energy, and it's just got a really fun flow to it, and it's got a lot of things happening, and it's really nicely contained. yeah, just not really many things to hate about the album. I actually quite liked it for my first, and I will say for my first Motion City soundtrack album as well. I think this was a really fucking good point for me to get started. So if you've heard about this band, but didn't get around to them before, but you want to listen to them, I highly recommend you give this one a spin if this is your first album by them. I think it's a really good starting point. Next up, we have a band who I didn't think I had covered before, but turns out I have. It's just been 5 years since their last album. It is Paradise Lost with their new album Ascension. Also, completely forgot to mention Motion City soundtrack genre, which is sort of like alt rock, emo, power poppy stuff. That is their sort of vibe. And Paradise Lost are a gothic-leaning death doom band from, and this constantly surprised me, they're from Halifax, West Yorkshire, in England. And when you think of England, you don't think of doom metal being from fucking Yorkshire, do you? Anyway, yeah, give this one a B+. I think I like this maybe more than I did Obsidian, mostly because I was surprised at the main lyrical theme. It's got a really good thing of dealing with mortality and just trying to find something good and hopeful in a world that's really on short supply of that. And usually when it comes to metal, especially metal from Britain, they're not usually focused on trying to find a good thing. They usually lean into the anger. So I was actually quite pleasantly surprised that this one actually wants to try and find something nice in all the evil that's going around. I also quite like the instrumentation, especially the guitar work. There's some fantastic lead work, and the drums are also quite solid too. Also quite like the structure. It is a bit one-trick pony. I think it's sort of the same thing I had with Obsidian, where I thought it was just kind of doing one thing, but that one thing is really good. And, they keep doing that here, which is quite nice. I also quite like the performances as well, and I'm going to highlight Greg McIntosh for two reasons. One, his lead guitar work is pretty bloody great. I would say he's the standout of the band. And two, he produced the album as well, and he gives it this really nice, clean and organic feel. It's got nice layering and all these really nice and organic touches, and I think that's sort of the main story of the album itself. It's just got all these really nice little things going for it. And yeah, for an album that feels like it can drag a tiny bit, it's still proper good, and I can see why people hail Paradise Lost as a driving force in English doom metal. So, if that's your kind of thing, I recommend give this one a go. And finally, we have Wednesday with their sixth album, Bleeds. So this is a weird bloody band to get into. They're a sort of shoegaze thing with country and folk elements, and also bits of grunge. And I completely missed their last album, Rat Saw God. I'm not sure why. In fact, I can't remember if I did miss it or if I just did it in a catch-up thing. And that was in 2023. I don't really care, but you know what? I'm giving this one a B+. I do think it's proper good stuff, although this is the album I had to listen to the most from past weekend because I had no clue for the most part what the fuck I was listening to. So let's start with the instrumentation, as it is very weird. I mean, the entire album is just very weird. It's an odd mix, but I kind of like how it works. The guitar is really bloody good, and yeah, really good focus on that, and I like the bass work too. Bass work is really strong. Lyrics also quite good. I like the themes of loss and depression, and it's written with sort of a Midwest emo vibe, which I think checks out because they're from North Carolina. Is that part of the Midwest in America? I don't fucking know, I'm not from there. But yeah, there's really good writing to it. I like the performances, and I will highlight frontwoman Carly Hartman. She's got a really good amount of projection when she sings, and I like when she leans into a scream as well. She's actually got a really good scream, and I feel like it adds more impact to certain words on the album. Production, also quite good, really sort of like slightly, sort of, for lack of a better term, scratchy feeling, and I think that helps quite well on the shoegaze side of things. And I quite like the structure as well. I do feel like it could have made its mind up a bit sooner than it does. I don't think this album really knows where it's going for the most part. Maybe that's a bit mean to say, because I get that this has been quite widely acclaimed and is likely to be on many album of the year lists. Maybe I'm just too dumb to understand parts of it, which is probably the case, but I like the pacing well enough. It's got a really good well of ideas, and most of them are quite nicely realised, and it's got a really good strong core sound. I just don't think this was the first album by Wednesday I should have listened to. Maybe I should have listened to Rat Saw God, so I could get used to how weird this one is. See, again, like I said earlier, I've listened to this one the most, and I'm still very confused, but like in a good way, and yeah, I'm not really sure how to feel about it, but I did like it. I don't know, maybe if I give this another spin, I'll see what people see in it that I fully don't. I still really enjoyed it, though. I just, again, maybe my brain's too slow to fully comprehend everything that's going on. Next is favourite album cover and favourite song. Favourite song I would have to give to maybe Pet Pheasant from LSD by Cardiacs. I think that's just a really great closing song, and it feels like a truly fitting send off to Tim, and yeah, it's just a really nice tribute. Favourite cover, kind of difficult, but because it's the weirdest one and stands out the most to me, I'd have to go with the cover for Bleeds by Wednesday, because it looks a bit like a lost page from Where the Wild Things Are. I've never read that book, I've not seen the movie, but the art style is quite similar. You know, it's got this sort of like young, spooky children's book cover vibe to it, and I kind of think it works. And next we have my listening list for this weekend, aka the stuff that comes out today, this fucking Friday, as in today fucking Friday. We have Beyond Extinction with Where They Gather, Dying Wish with Flesh Stays Together, Geese with Getting Killed, The Living End with I Only Trust Rock and Roll, Sprints with All That Is Over, and The Starting Line with Eternal Youth. And that'll about do it from me. I should hopefully see you tomorrow for a new AFED thing, for more PVW vs AVW, The Return to After Reference. I was going to see you tonight for it, but unfortunately, 2K completely decided to just screw me and deleted my data, so I had to go through my Rise and the fucking showcase mode to unlock some shit so I could re-download wrestlers I already had. Thankfully, for some reason, I didn't really have to redo island mode bits to get a couple of wrestlers, which I found a bit odd as that was the only data that wasn't fully deleted. So if that wasn't fully deleted, why was Showcase and My Rise both completely gone? Why was most of my shot? Why was most of my stuff just completely gone anyway? I'm very confused, but my point is, after this video's up, by the time you're seeing this, I'll probably be like down in the mines just recreating the other fucking wrestlers I need to recreate, so yeah, hopefully, God willing, I will be able to get a show up by tomorrow night, but we'll see. And yeah, that'll be it. As always, thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye bye.